disrespect has gotten out of control. Yes, we know that last year was an absolute disaster from start to finish from the Philadelphia 76ers, but the slate has been wiped clean, and we all need to recognize this. That was not the case from the New York Knicks broadcast during the preseason matchup between the Sixers and Knicks, as one former Knicks legend took a pretty pointed dig at the franchise himself, Tyrese Maxey. And if there is one guy who should be absolved from the criticism as a whole, or should be at least sheltered from it to an extent here, it should be Maxey himself. Now, I want to dive into exactly what was said, why I have an issue with it, and why people are sleeping on this Sixers team to an extent. So let's get right into it.
Of course, those Kentucky teams were
great.
great.
I'm going to start, as I pull this off the screen, with the initial quote here coming from Walt Frazier on the mic. And it was asked, the story was being told about Tyrese Maxey, speaking about how hard it was for him to be a part of a losing team, that for the duration of his entire basketball career, from high school to AAU, he had never been on a losing team before, because that's who Tyrese Maxey is. When you're that caliber of talent, with that level of pull, when talking about thinking the players that he has played with to this point, that isn't the biggest surprise in the world. I would guess, honestly, a lot of NBA players have had a similar upbringing. So he's been pretty open about that, and that was a theme in a lot of his interviews last year. But they were telling that story on the Knicks broadcast, to which Walt Frazier, the Knicks legend that he is, does chime in and says, quote, "He better get used to it." Now, don't just take my word from it, as I did want to pull up the exact clip right here. So take a listen to Walt on the mic.
Of course, those Kentucky teams were great. In the Dallas area, Maxey helped a high school become a dynasty. So last year, he said that was the first time he's been on a losing team.
Well, you better get used to it. Doesn't look good.
Yeah, I didn't love that one. I didn't love that one coming out like that. And to Clyde Frazier directly. Now, I understand he is an NBA Hall of Famer, a guy who is a Knicks legend. I also understand he dresses like a Christmas tree ornament. I also understand that he would not crack the floor in the modern NBA when they have actual guys with athleticism playing. And, maybe we have a different tune about how talented of a basketball player he is if he was playing in today's game. But nonetheless, we'll put that to the side. It is a widespread issue that people are not giving this Sixers team any sort of respect. Now, I'll be upfront and say there's a part of me that thinks it could be a good thing, that I think this team does need to feel a little hunger. They do need to feel slanted to an extent here. But when we get things like power rankings that has the Sixers at 22nd in the NBA, that is straight up laughable in my mind. And the write-up, this coming from Bleacher Report directly, says, "The Philadelphia 76ers position is eerily similar to the Pelicans," which I just wholeheartedly disagree with that premise in itself. But it writes, "Their upside is entirely tied to the health of a player who's rarely been healthy. In this case, it's obviously Joel Embiid. And the fact that he and Paul George had off-season surgeries made it hard to imagine Philadelphia competing for a title. Or at least that was the case before Media Day. Like Zion, Embiid showed up looking trimmer than usual, and if he, George, and Tyrese Maxey are all upright in the spring, the Sixers could make a real playoff run in the injury-decimated East." Now, if this is your case, why are they ranked at 22nd in the NBA, which I do find offensive here? And I reject the notion of a Zion Williamson to Joel Embiid comparison here. And why do I reject that? Because Joel Embiid is a player who has maximized his potential, who's fought through his body issues, whose body has failed him in a way that Zion has failed himself. That we've seen Joel Embiid ascend to legitimate MVP caliber talent, one of the most talented basketball players ever. That straight up, pound for pound, minute for minute, production for production, you will not find very many guys who can compete at the level of Joel Embiid. That same concept with Zion Williamson is all theoretical to this point. That dude has missed a higher percentage of games than Joel Embiid directly, and for lesser deal injuries, we might note. Now, I'm not an anti-Zion Williamson guy. I would love nothing more than to see what it's like when he is healthy. But the fact of the matter is that has not been the case. This is not a defense of Joel Embiid's availability, that we know the issues that he deals with here, but these are not even playing fields that we're talking about this player. And by the way, we've seen Joel Embiid anchor a franchise and have a team, hold a team to a standard that has just straight up never been the case with Zion Williamson there. So I do reject that exact comparison. And this concept of the future being so bleak, I just don't think is the case here. That let's walk through the worst case scenario of Joel Embiid is really injured, can never get on the floor this year. That Paul George never looks like himself, never close to the max contract player that he was signed to be. What happens if that is the case? Well, I like this write-up here from Adam Aronson of the Philly Voice that writes the future is not that bleak. And why he makes the case is, quote, "In case the first two thoughts here lead to the despair regarding the Sixers' ability to compete for a championship in the near future, though not many people appeared confident in such a concept to begin with, it is worth noting that the Sixers' long-term standing is a lot healthier than the vast majority of teams that have flamed out of title contention. First of all, they have plenty of young talent, from 24-year-old Maxey as a proven star to 20-year-old Edgecombe and 21-year-old McCain. Even players like Edwards, Adembona, and Janai Broom present some hope as potential longer-term rotation pieces. Grimes just turned 25 years and is already very good. On top of that, the Sixers find themselves in a pretty decent position when it comes to their future draft capital, with the trade sending James Harden to the Los Angeles Clippers in 2023, helping the team recoup first-round value, and a deal with the Washington Wizards last year, buoying the team's collection of future second-rounders. For anyone interested in exactly which picks the Sixers owe to other teams and owe from other teams over the next several years, the Philly Voice put together a tracker of the Sixers draft assets, which will be bookmarked whenever that team makes moves in the future. Now, we're not tied up on the draft pick conversation right here. I am interested in the youthful talent. And for starters, I do think Tyrese Maxey is the exact proper bridge for what this franchise needs. From an attitude perspective, from a personality perspective, from a talent perspective. Let's not forget this dude was a legitimate all-star in the NBA last year. One full season removed. We're not that far gone here. And by the way, I love everything about Tyrese Maxey's response to this, as he quote tweets that initial post of Walt Frazier saying that he better get used to it as far as losing go, and Maxey just says, bet. I love that here, that this has to be a speak with actions type of season, that I don't want to hear these empty phrases from the Sixers about ramping up or best shape of my life or whatever. We need to see it on the floor, and I get that level of frustration across the board, but I just think if we are to look at the worst case scenario, which is a legitimate case of being possible here with Paul George and with Joel Embiid, how many organizations would sign up for the young core of Jared McCain, of Quentin Grimes, of VJ Edgecombe, of Tyrese Maxey, of everybody else from the youthful roster, the Janai Brooms, the Adembonas, the Justin Edwards that were mentioned there? That is a lot better standing than a lot of organizations out there. Now, the one interesting battle and storyline that I think will be worth noting this year is the level of opportunity that VJ Edgecombe, third overall pick VJ Edgecombe, receives. And that was one of the quotes that really stood out to me from Media Day this year. As Nick Nurse was asked about that. What are fair expectations for a guy? This is a bit of a unique situation where a player is drafted third overall, which you expect there to be a long leash of opportunity, but this is a team that, if things do break correctly, do have legitimate expectations, standards, and a chance at competing this year. Nick Nurse said his goal for VJ Edgecombe is simply minutes. Earn them. Prove that you belong. Carve out a role for yourself. Now, Sixers Adam also in this article wrote a little bit about the Edgecombe outlook. And the way that he put it here is how the Sixers will weigh VJ Edgecombe's development versus the Sixers' short-term needs. And what he says is, one of the unique challenges facing the Sixers head coach Nick Nurse and the rest of the organization in the season ahead, balancing the process of accelerating the development of Edgecombe, which should be among the team's top priorities, with their desire to stage a strong year-to-year turnaround and become a contender in the Eastern Conference that sorely lacks high-level teams. Edgecombe has good instincts, and with work ethic like the Sixers believe he has, there is no skill development that can be ruled out. But right now, he is not close to the caliber of playmaker for himself or others of a guard one would expect to be tasked with any ball handling duties for an NBA team. His ball handling is a weakness right now, and his shooting, while improved, remains somewhat of a work in progress. However, he does have the ability to help an NBA team right now with his defensive intensity, transition scoring, and impressive chops as a cutter. Now, I think this is being a little bit strong about his playmaking. We've seen 2 games of preseason action, and I don't think the tape in college is nearly as bad as some people make it out to be. Like, I know we were heavy in the weeds with the Ace Bailey versus VJ Edgecombe debates here. VJ's handle is better than Ace, like straight up. It just is, like the way that he can get to places on the floor. Ace was very much a straight line guy, not creating. There's a little bit of wiggle to VJ's game. And the Bahamas tape, it especially pops, which you can see some of that. And the playmaking, I thought, was much better in that Olympic level where there was spacing. VJ himself has talked about how he did not like the spacing of college and how difficult that was. And guess what? It made him better in the long run. So I think it's a little bit premature to be stamping that, but that is still a storyline to note. What does this dude's level of opportunity really look like on the floor? And what does that mean for the Sixers' outlook from here? They still have to figure out, and the biggest goal of this season will be establishing what is the foundation. Which of these young guards are here to stay? Which can be this next era of Sixers basketball? Is it Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey with VJ Edgecombe off the bench? Is McCain going to be a permanent 6-man? Is it Edgecombe and Maxey as the backcourt? Where does Quentin Grimes fit into this equation here? These are all questions that need to be answered with on-court play. But these are better problems to have than a lot of teams in the NBA are currently faced with. Look around the Eastern Conference. Look around the list of teams and issues that they are dealing with. I feel okay about how the Sixers currently stand. So I understand that last season sucked. But we got to let that go. We got to move on. We got to turn the page. The team seems like they already have. It's time for the fan base to do the same. So to Clyde Frazier there, did not appreciate the dig at our guy Tyrese Maxey. Did not Did love the response from Tyrese and hope that it is backed up on the floor, but I'm geared up and think that this Sixers team may be surprising a couple people this year a bit more than what those, bar on the floor expectations seem to be from the fan base. Let me know if you guys are with me in the comments. Did that little dig rub you the wrong way? I think anything Knicks still gets my senses up, that I just stay away. We don't need any sort of Knicks propaganda or frustrations expressed to the Sixers here. You guys stay in your lane, we'll stay in ours, and eventually they will cross in the future. There could very well be a playoff matchup between those two teams that I still don't view the Knicks as a tier above this Sixers team. They're a fake good team. We will see how things shake out, but I do not believe that is a championship threat. I'm not saying that the Sixers are this year, but I do think if things break 100% their way, that this is an eye-to-eye type of comparison. So we'll see how things do shake out, what the health outlook is for this Sixers team. But take a look at what this team looks like on paper, and it is a whole lot better than what a lot of
those Kentucky teams were.
What a lot of franchises are ultimately dealing with there. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you starting to come around, starting to believe in the Sixers team to an extent? Do you still need to see some action on the floor to start believing? Drop your thoughts below. Appreciate you guys for hanging me as always. If you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video here. We are getting geared up and ramping up for this regular season right here on Sixers Digest. So want as many of you as possible along for the ride. Make sure you're hitting that button, dropping your thoughts below. I'll be back. Talk with you next time. Peace.